The Morristown Green, a central park echoing with the footfalls of Washington and his compatriots during the Revolutionary War, is not merely a serene escape, but a living testament to the town's pivotal role in shaping our nation. Morristown's history seamlessly intertwines with every individual who grew up there, creating a childhood rich in the echoes of the past and a vibrant spirit of community carried forward by each successive generation. These are their stories. This is Beyond the Green.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Green, where we talk about the people and places of Morristown. My name is Peter, Morristown class of 1990. Terry is on vacation this week. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome to the show fellow alumnus from 2008, current teacher and head coach of the Morristown High School football program. Please welcome Coach Casey Flynn to the program. Welcome, Casey.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for coming on, Case. So let's start growing up in Morristown. Whereabouts in Morristown did you grow up?
I grew up kind of two different spots, the Fairchild section until around like first grade, and then from second through high school right on Sussex Ave. But,
Okay.
I didn't go to Sussex. I was literally like 400 feet away from Sussex Avenue School, and they didn't have crossing guards. So I went to AH.
Got it.
I went to Hillcrest and AH, and and then to Frelinghuysen.
Yeah. So talk to us about Casey in high school. Were you like a shy kid? Were you outgoing?
I like to say I was a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I was outgoing with the group of friends that I had, and I had a good. I was kind of like the center of a couple of different friend groups.
Sure.
But with them I was all right. In class, if I was comfortable with the teacher, I was definitely out there.
Yeah.
But more reserved.
Was there any one particular teacher that you felt comfortable with the most?
Yeah, in middle school, it was Kevin Rooney,
Sure.
who is
Sure.
now a colleague of mine,
Sure.
which I'm sure makes him feel old. And then in high school, Matt Carmel. Matt Carmel, and my family grew up together with one of my uncles, and we definitely joked almost a little too much when I was a student. But now he's also a colleague of mine, so we get to bash each other a little bit.
So then, other than we'll get to you playing football in high school, but was there any other sports that you participated in?
Yeah, I was also a wrestler, and played baseball up until my sophomore year.
Okay.
And then really around like sophomore year, at the end of it, I kind of had to make a decision on like my future and what I wanted to do. And it was in either football or wrestling. And then it ended up being football all the way through. So
yeah. So what position did you play in high school?
Offensive line and defensive line. I was a center on the offensive line, and then I was D tackle, defensive end on the defensive line.
Did you care which side of the ball you played on?
No. Fortunately, our coach Chris Hull, he took over for Coach Purcelli. Coach Purcelli stepped down my freshman year, and then Coach Hull took over my sophomore year. So I had him for sophomore, junior, and senior year, and they had a philosophy. And when I became a coach for him out of college, I learned that like if you're one of the best 16, 18 kids, you're going to play both ways. And then he had a little bit of a crazy defensive coordinator who said, if you need a break, let me know. but we don't take breaks on defense. So, um, and then offensively, you didn't want to be that person that took the break,
Yeah.
because it could ruin a mesh or any type of relationship that you have with the quarterback and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. So then after high school, you went to college.
yeah.
Where'd you go?
Lake Forest College in
Okay.
Illinois, 30 miles north of Chicago, about
Okay.
halfway between Chicago and the Wisconsin border.
Okay. And I'm gonna make the assumption you played football there.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
defensive line.
Okay.
I saw some time my freshman year. I was a long snapper,
Okay.
and kind of like rotational. And then by sophomore, junior year, I started to see more playing time.
Uh huh.
And then senior year, I was named captain.
Nice.
Um, and obviously a starter, a 2 year
Hmm.
starter at the time.
Hmm.
So it was a great experience to be
Yeah.
at Lake Forest.
Yeah. A lot of times you hear about whether or not you're playing the line, whether or not you're on the offense or the defense, that these guys are expected to put on a lot of weight.
Yeah,
And I'm assuming that's happened to you as well. Whether or not you went in at that right weight or not, you had to put it on.
right.
Um, is it one of those things that once you're done playing, is it one of those things that it's difficult to take the weight back off, or do you want to take the weight back off? That's the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. So going into my freshman year of college, I had
Yeah,
just finished obviously wrestling season in
yeah,
March. I made the decision to go to Lake Forest probably in
uh-huh,
like May. Um, and when I stepped on the scale, my defensive coordinator was like, "You're too skinny."
hmm.
Um, so we had to like keep bulking me out. And I walked into camp at like 235.
Wow,
But they wanted me at like 260, 265.
wow,
So, I got there naturally
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because I can't put the fork down.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
understand that.
but it was good. And that's one thing that obviously as a coach you have to explain to guys who want to go at that higher level
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
listen, like if we start putting on weight in high school, the good healthy weight, we're eating the right things.
Hmm.
Um, we're taking our protein drinks after we work out.
Sure.
It'll make the process a little bit easier.
Hmm.
We have a kid who just graduated. He's at Temple on a full ride, and the offensive line coach was texting me basically saying he needs to get to, close to 300 pounds by
Hmm.
June, by graduation.
Yeah.
So, I was monitoring his weight. We were stepping on the scale at least once a
Uh huh.
week. So it's interesting in
Yeah.
um, that you have to maintain it. And yeah, it is difficult to lose it once you have it,
Yeah.
because now
Yeah.
you have to have the discipline of actually putting the fork down and monitoring your intake and all
Sure.
that stuff. So
Yeah. But do you think that's especially for the guys who do plan to go into college, whether they're walk-ons or they get the full ride? Do you think that's one concept of that they don't fully grasp about getting to that weight that they have to be? Is
um, I don't know if it's necessarily difficult. I do think that um, they come to a bit of a realization that like the amount of food that you're eating is not enough, or
Hmm. Hmm.
what you're eating is just gonna quickly go through your body.
Yeah.
So you really just have to monitor and maintain certain
Hmm.
things. Chicken, broccoli, and rice is probably
Right.
the easiest meal to put on weight.
Hmm.
Um, you know, and that's what we had. We had our offensive lineman do. That's now at Temple's camp.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Okay. So then we graduate college,
Yeah.
right? And did you get
I
a degree in education? Is that what you got a degree in?
Yeah. So I got I was on track for a dual major,
Okay.
history and education.
Okay.
In order to stay in education, I would have done a fifth year in got my master's through
Okay.
Lake Forest College. But obviously the requirement is to pass, the state testing.
Mm-hmm.
And at Lake Forest or in Illinois, it's one of the hardest tests to pass
Okay.
in the nation. And um, I had failed it quite a few times.
Okay.
2 points, 1 point away. So I stayed out there for um, a semester, like a half a year.
Mm-hmm.
I started my coaching career at Lake Forest Academy,
Okay.
doing football and wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, kind of like midway through wrestling, I said, I think it's time for me to come home, really focus on um, getting what I want to do,
Sure.
and being a teacher and a coach. And
Okay.
so I came home that December of
Mm-hmm.
2012, um,
Nice. Okay.
really put the axe to the grindstone and
Mm-hmm.
passed the state test in New Jersey, did grad school through Grand Canyon University to get my master's in teaching.
Sure.
Um, And then this past year, I went back to school because, I love education so much,
Sure.
um, to get my certification in administration. So
Okay.
I
Great.
now have 2 master's degrees and a
So,
certification in administration.
so talk about coming back and working for the Moore School District. Now, how did that transpire?
Um, the school district looks for substitutes
Uh-huh.
a lot. So right when I got back, I had reached out to the wrestling coach,
Okay.
and I had said, I still want to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I talked to Coach Hall at the time. He was still the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so basically, we waited until, I kind of got my feet under me with the
Mm-hmm.
graduate school, and I became a volunteer assistant,
Mm-hmm.
and substituted at Morristown High School, and it was dramatically different than um, when I graduated, which was at the time 4 or 5 years out, and
Sure.
like it's a 1-to-1 technology school, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
like the overhead projectors were gone,
Yeah.
with the transparency papers, and everything was on Google Slides and the
Right.
Google Suite, and I was like,
Yeah.
all right, this is the education that I have to learn. So
Sure. Sure. But then, we were talking, when I came to see you at the high school, how I told you, like, it was over 30 years since I actually walked into the high school, and I was just there a few weeks prior to seeing you. And when you took me down, I'm like, it's so weird because it's a little bit like deja vu,
yeah,
because you spent so much time there and then you haven't been there, but then all of a sudden it all comes back to you so quickly in a way. And because we kind of touched base on how weird it was for you to come back as a teacher,
yeah,
and now you have, and now like you're saying with Mr. Rooney, like, here's a guy who taught you, and now you're coworkers now,
yeah,
in the same department.
right,
And because now you teach freshman history, is that
yep,
correct?
yep. Freshman history, yeah,
Yeah. So that is in itself is a little bit like Twilight Zone,
yeah,
where your life almost comes full circle to some degree,
yeah.
Um,
It's also crazy too. Like, there have been improvements to Morristown High School, like the old
mhm,
wood shop.
mhm,
That wall got blown out.
mhm,
There was an extension years ago that got put on, and now there's a state of the art wood shop.
mhm, mhm,
The 3D printing and CAD
mhm.
department.
Yeah.
A couple new science classes as well, and
Mhm,
um, but like that old structure, that 4 floor
mhm.
old building, it still stands, and it's still pretty hot in those hot months. So
So so then talk to us about transitioning then to taking over the team.
Yeah, so I took over. I actually originally took over the wrestling program. I was the head wrestling coach for 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then the coach at the time, Coach Power, um, had stepped down, and I had actually been working with him in the classroom and asked him um, if he thought that I would have been a good fit
Mm-hmm.
um, for being the head football coach. And he gave me his blessing, and he said he thinks that it would be good, or at
Mm-hmm.
least it would be good to interview. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I did that during wrestling season. Uh, Talked with our athletic director, Smitty Horton, and
Mm-hmm.
um, at the time I was also the head softball coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I did have to tell Mr. Horton if I'm offered this position, I'm going to have to step away from softball.
Sure.
And the offer came in January,
Mm-hmm.
became official, I think, in around February. Um, but, January was when I unfortunately put in my resignation for softball because it was fun. And
Yeah.
I thought that it taught me a new way to teach and coach.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I knew that we had a lot of work to do to rebuild a culture with
Yeah.
football.
Yeah. So just going back to the process of hiring you on as coach, is that how was it a difficult process? Was it a stressful process? Because it's obviously something that you really wanted.
Yeah, it's stressful. Like you put your own stress on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know that one of uh, my best friends, and he's now my defensive coordinator. I knew
Mm-hmm.
that um, both of us were finalists, and
Mm-hmm.
we were going to um, have to manage who's the head coach, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When it came down to it, but at the same time, I had applied to Morristown a couple of times
Mm-hmm.
before actually coming over,
Mm-hmm.
and I just kind of had the philosophy of it: if it doesn't work out and it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be, and I could still be the head wrestling coach and head
Sure.
softball coach, and
Mm-hmm.
still be the assistant football coach if that head coach needed me. And
Mm-hmm.
um, fortunately, I was given the opportunity to be the head coach, and um, it's been stressful at times, but at the same time, it's so rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah. I came a couple. I came to see you a couple of times and saw a couple of practices. Um, and you can always tell. I've been around the block enough. It doesn't matter uh, what industry you're on, whether it's on sports or in the corporate world. Um, it's very easy to recognize good leadership, and you can't fake good leadership. And from what I saw, not only from yourselves but also from your coaches, these kids, the hardest things to get is a bunch of kids to respect you. Not only did they respect you, but they sat on every single word. And when you have that, when you have great leadership and kids that want to learn, you're going to have a great team.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't, if I can assess, if I'm going to give you a preseason report to the people of Morristown, this team's going to be good. I can't tell you how good they're going to be. I don't know what their records are going to be, but this team is going to be good. Um, and that's what makes us exciting, and that's what kind of, you know, if you allow me to announce why I actually came to see you at the high school.
Yeah.
A coach called me and he wanted to do something with the podcast. So we sat down for a little bit and I tossed some ideas at him, and we kind of decided that if those of you who are familiar with the HBO program Hard Knocks, we are going to do a 5 to 6 episode Hard Knocks of Morristown High School football. And within that program, we're going to highlight 5 or 6 seniors and kind of tell their story of their senior year playing high school. Um, which personally, I think it's exciting as heck.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
it's gonna be fun for sure.
yeah. And I think it not only will, I think it'll allow our audience members, those who are football fans, those who are not football fans, to not only better understand you as a coach, um, but also to get the behind the scenes of who these players are.
Yeah,
And these kids, I had some limited time talking to them, but they're so multidimensional, and there's so much more to these kids than what you see on the field. And that's what's most exciting to me, and I think that's what will be exciting for the people watching this and the people that come out um, to the field to watch the game. Um, so your first game is going to be August 30th,
yep,
versus Patterson East Side High.
yep.
Um, does that, when you see your lineup, because you're playing a lot of different teams you typically wouldn't play this year, just because you're explaining to me how you have to find schools with larger populations now. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. We're a Group 5 school.
Yeah.
We're the only Group 5 school in Morris County.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for us to get a taste of what the postseason will look like,
Mm-hmm.
we have to play Group 5 competition.
Yeah.
So we loaded it up with Patterson Eastside,
Mm-hmm.
Clifton, Old Bridge, and
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth as our non-conference games.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also a huge credit to our division. Our division is, West Morris, Roxbury, Randolph, Morris Knowles,
Mm-hmm.
um, Mount Olive, and I go to bat. In almost any reporter asking by saying we're probably in the toughest division in the state of New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
All 6 made the playoffs last year. 3 of
Mm-hmm.
them made the sectional finals. 2 of them were champs because
Mm-hmm.
one sectional final was against each other, Roxbury and
Yeah.
Mount Olive. So
Yeah.
it's a huge credit and to that division, but also too, I think that we needed to challenge and beef up the schedule
Mm-hmm.
because you know, we need to take that turn.
Yeah.
Last year we missed a couple of games, um, lost a couple of games by small attention to detail, and now we're gonna keep harping on that to turn the corner, and we're gonna do it against competition that we will most likely see in postseason play.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very exciting. I think the higher level of competition will make the team even better then. Like you said, going into the playoffs, you already have the mindset, you'll already have the skill set prepared to play those tougher teams. Um, I just want to touch base at it. For those people out there who are watching, uh, what defines a Division 5 school?
Group 5 is the largest schools.
Yeah.
So we're actually on the lower end of Group 5,
Okay.
just regarding like classification of student enrollment.
Uh huh.
Um, but I think the largest Group 5 school is like Passaic County Tech,
Okay.
um, and I think they have like close to 3,000 students. So
Mm-hmm.
they're the largest
Wow.
in Group 5.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah,
It's a lot of kids.
yeah.
Um, so looking at your roster, who you have now,
Mm.
since you've been, whether or not you've been an assistant coach or now as a head coach, how do you feel about this team? The 2024 roster.
I feel good about him. I think that even when I was the wrestling coach, I knew that the
Hmm.
first 2 years were going to be tough and trying to
Hmm.
change the culture and turn over
Hmm.
that new leaf. And by like that third and fourth year, expectations are set. The standard of best practice is set,
Hmm.
um, and there's no wavering from it.
Yeah.
We have a lot of great senior leadership,
Hmm.
um, and a lot of returning players from last year. So they have the
Hmm.
varsity experience and they know what it's like to be in those close games. And now we have to turn that corner. And I think that they're very much prepared to do it.
Yeah. 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 Like I said, from what I've seen, I definitely think like these guys are ready to hit the battlefield, as they say,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
work the trenches.
Yes.
Um, so let me just move along a little here, and let me do what we do with every guest, especially those who graduate from Morristown, and go into our five simple questions with you.
Okay.
So during high school, who at the high school was the most influential for you?
I would say Mr. Carmel,
Hmm.
because he kind of solidified that I wanted to, be a history teacher.
Hmm.
And then uh, Coach Hall, um, he kind of like pushed me beyond my own limits.
Hmm.
And, he allowed me to really kind of become who I wanted to be.
Hmm. Hmm. So if you never became a teacher and you never became a coach of any sort,
Yeah.
where do you think you'd be?
That's a great question. Oh, man. Um, because going into, I would say going into high school, I was torn between teaching
Yeah.
and being an architect, and then all of a sudden algebra came
Okay.
in with numbers and missing letters, and I was like, I can't do.
Yeah.
Um,
X's and O you're great at,
yeah,
but when it comes to
yeah,
number, we can't deal with
yeah.
that.
Simple football statistics I could do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Finding X, Y, Z, and C and the angle of A, B, whatever.
Yeah.
It was not me. Um,
were
so
you were you were you good at drawing? Drawing?
I like to say I was,
Okay.
but I don't know if entirely that's true. I mean,
Okay.
in like first grade at Alfred Vale,
Yeah.
I did like a portrait of one of my best friends, and it ended up
Yeah.
at the community theater for like some
Wow.
art show. Um, but then like it very well fell off. But by the time I got to my senior year, I was taking like graphic arts and wood
Sure.
shop. So I would have probably wanted to go that direction in
Okay.
some way if there was no teaching or coaching.
Yeah. That's great though. Um so if you had a an opposing coach come up to you
Mhm.
and say, "Hey coach, listen, I'm going to be in town. My wife's coming with me. Can you recommend a restaurant in Morristown?" What would you tell
I tell them don't come.
him?
but
Really?
um, I don't know. We're it's funny the rivalries, right? And I live through the rivalries that we have, and I am cordial with some of the coaches that we play, even our
Mhm.
rivals.
Sure.
I'd probably tell them to hit up maybe the office, or
Okay.
if they're made out of money, go to Roots or something.
Sure. Sure.
Um, yeah, those would be some spots for sure.
So while you were in high school, even in college, were there any NFL players that you looked up to or even wanted to emulate?
Um, Defensive, I was a defensive lineman, so
Mm-hmm.
um, you look at like the Reggie Whites
Mm-hmm.
and guys like that.
Sure.
And even too, like looking at the higher level college while you're in college, and you
Mm-hmm.
see like like Ndamukong Suh was so um, amazing at his
Mm-hmm.
spot. Aaron Donald was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I would say like the Reggie White highlight film
Mm-hmm.
was was tremendous to watch all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we being at Lake Forest, it was actually pretty fortunate that when daylight savings time came around, the Chicago Bears practice facility is in Lake Forest.
Okay.
So we were able to practice in their indoor facility because we didn't have lights on our field.
Sure.
Historically speaking, the Bears actually used to practice where our game field was in
Mm-hmm.
college. And then we actually had a coach um, who had passed away. He was a linebackers coach for the Bears. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, Brian Urlacher came to a homecoming game.
Wow.
Yeah, and his brother Casey was
Uh-huh.
actually a player for Lake Forest College.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, in the 2000s. So, you know, it was fun to see, and then try to perform in front of a professional was, it was tough, but you had to
Yeah.
get the job done.
Yeah. Absolutely. But that's awesome, though.
Yeah.
So finally, if 2024 Casey Flynn can somehow go back into time and
Hmm.
slip a note into 2008 Casey Flynn's pocket the night before high school graduation, what would you tell him?
Work harder. Just keep working. Like when, um, you, you know, you think that you're always working hard enough, but
Mm-hmm.
just having that little work harder
Mm-hmm.
note probably would have been posted up, in my dorm room
Mm-hmm.
by the door as
Mm-hmm.
I'm walking out.
Mm-hmm.
It probably would have been everywhere. That's
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Good word of advice.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny in retrospect how everything is always 2020.
Yeah.
There's always that coulda, shoulda, mentality. But you ended up still working hard, and you are where you are today.
Yeah. Yep.
So, um, so last but not least, I'll let you. What's one thing that you'd want? Is there any one thing that you'd want to tell not only your players but also the fans out there about what they may not know about you?
Man. Um, let's see. Um, I tell my players, um, and hopefully the community knows this with how closely linked I am, and it's really because of my father and my grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
and my uncles as well. My grandfather started the youth football league in town,
Mm-hmm.
and anyone who's anyone would still say, "Hey, coach," to my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it just kind of shows the love that we as a family have for our players
Mm-hmm.
and our community. And
Mm-hmm.
I tell my kids when we break all the time that I love them. Even when I'm mad at them, I love them. So you know, uh, I think that sometimes they think that it's just Coach Flynn, ending his practice speech. But there's a quote um, that someone put up on the coaching threads of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, coaches lose sleep over other people's kids. Um, And there are times where I'm tossing and turning just to see what's best for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I love them through graduation, and I check in with them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're always welcome back to our field and our
Yeah.
sidelines. So
Yeah. That 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 that's great, man. That really is. Um, so coach, thanks for coming on the program. We appreciate you. I think, like I said earlier, I think uh, not only the students at Morristown, but I also think the parents and the fan base of the program we're gonna have a great year this year. Um, it's kind of written on the wall. Like I said, I don't know how good it's gonna be. Good, I don't know how good, but it's gonna be good. As far as us and doing the docu series, we're gonna be start filming that in a few weeks. I can tell you, we will be filming the game. We'll be at Old Bridge, we'll be at Clifton, and I think we'll be at one more home game. So we'll definitely, and homecoming is October 5th. I believe that's the Old Bridge game.
that's right. Yeah,
So,
it's a 2:30 kickoff because of SATs.
okay.
So
Okay. So, but we'll put out our filming schedule out there again. And if you're at the homecoming game, we will be pulling footage of the crowd, and we will be doing interviews with the alumni that come back for that. So, Coach, once again, thank you so much.
thanks
For
for having
Beyond
me.
the Green, I am Peter. That is Morristown High School football coach Casey Flynn. Until next time, be good to each other, and we'll see you soon.